Let's begin with how markets performed as at Friday, the 19th of January, beginning with commodities, where Brent crude came in at a price of $79.45 and a positive change of 0.44%, while WTI crude came in at a price of $74.55 with a positive change of 0.63%. Natural gas was down at a price of $2.56 and a change of negative 4.97%. And lastly, is RBOG gasoline down at a price of $2.18 at a change of 0.03%, all as at 4:01 GMT. Now to Nigerian markets, where the bulls take control again with a strong close of the week. As a result, NGX All-Share Index settled higher at 94,538.12. The gains in Boer Cement, Seplat and Maybecker sustained the NGX main index in yesterday's trading session with a deal of 15,255, volume of 844.48 million and equity capitalization of 51.73 trillion naira. Let's now take a look at how the markets in Europe performed as at Friday, 19th January, where we saw a negative clean sweep. The Euro Stoxx 600 closed at an all-share index of 468.88, down at a negative 0.33%. London FTSE also in the red at an all-share index of 7,458.25 and down by a negative 0.1%. The markets in Germany saw the DAX close at 16,534.66, down by 0.20%, while the CAC 40 in Paris ended the week at 7,364.85, down by 0.49. And finally, the IBEX 35 closed at a negative 0.33 with an all-share index of 9,847.30, being the last market closing in the negative as at 4:05 GMT on Friday. Finally, let's take a look at how Wall Street performed. We take you now to our top business stories for the week. We begin in Davos, where Nigeria's Vice President Kashim Shettima says the country's delegation did not head to the 2024 World Economic Forum to beg. Rather, the premise was to dialogue with investors on a fair and balanced, mutually beneficial relationship. He spoke exclusively with Arise News anchor Dr. Ruben Abati. Let's take a look.
Honestly, I was quite impressed with the outpouring of support by the global business community, which I've come to appreciate the permanent role Nigeria plays in Africa. For the purpose of perspectives, 1 out of every 4 black men is a Nigerian. And by 2050, we are projected to be the 3rd most populous nation on earth. We will surpass the United States. Our population will be 440 million people. By then, 1 out of every 3 black men is a Nigerian. And by the end of the century, we will be the most populous nation on earth. Certainly, this is the most populous country in Africa and its largest economy. Wherever Nigeria goes, that's where Africa goes. And the trajectory of global growth is facing Africa, and Nigeria will make or mar that destination. Our presence was well received, especially in the light of some far-reaching decisions taken by the present administration towards repositioning the economy. Oil subsidy for successive administration has been an albatross round our neck. The president summoned the political willpower to remove the oil subsidy. And we know the consequences of unveiling a masquerade. There's a huge cabal that piece part on the oil subsidy scam. Look at the multiple exchange rate regime that provided room for a lot of shady practices. We collapsed the multiple exchange rates, the multiple taxation. The president had set up a committee to synchronize our taxes and come up with a single line taxation system. So the global community was thrilled We had a lot of positive interface, positive interactions, and very soon our efforts will start yielding fruits. We are not a poor nation by any standard. We are not a poor continent. We want to deal with people on a pedestal of equality. We do not come to the West with a begging bowl, no. We want to deal with them on mutually beneficial terms because ours is the richest continent in the world. The whole countries of Europe, their resources are not up to the resources in the Democratic Republic of Congo. This is why I said we carry our poverty with dignity. We are not here wherever we go.
Now, British inflation unexpectedly accelerated in December on tobacco duty hikes, missing expectations of a slowdown and dimming hopes of an interest rate cut. The Consumer Prices Index climbed from 4% last month, the first increase since February 2023. That is double the Bank of England's official target of percent, and dashed market expectations for a slowdown of 3.8%. China's economy last year grew at one of its slowest rates in more than 3 decades, official figures showed on Wednesday, as it was battered by a crippling property crisis, sluggish consumption, and global turmoil. The figures were in line with expectations and even beat Beijing's target, but will most likely pile fresh pressure on officials to unveil more stimulus measures to get the country's army of consumers spending again. China's National Bureau of Statistics revealed that gross domestic product expanded 5.2% to hit 126 trillion yuan last year. Now, Taiwanese chip-making giant TSMC saw a nearly 20% drop in net profits in the fourth quarter of 2023, it announced on Thursday. The company declared that its net profit decreased 19.3% year-on-year in October-December to $7.6 billion, while its revenues were essentially flat. The chip industry has been sluggish performance, which companies attribute to high inflation and slowing global economic growth caused in part by geopolitical tensions. It has emerged that Nigerian banks in the first 8 days in 2024 deposited a whopping 2.66 billion naira with the Central Bank of Nigeria rather than lent to the real sector of the economy. The banks, according to the CBN financial data, however, borrowed an estimated 615.47 billion naira in the first 8 days of 2024 in a bid to meet their daily business obligations. Now, the African Export-Import Bank has confirmed an initial disbursement of $2.25 billion out of the $3.3 billion crude oil repayment facility recently approved for Nigeria. Wale Adun, the Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, stated that although the federal government has had access to the $2.25 billion foreign exchange facility since last December, it is Afrexim Bank's responsibility to announce the disbursement at the appropriate time. The much-needed credit support aims to alleviate the severe foreign exchange shortfalls that has hampered economic activity and undermined investor confidence in the country. Now, Goldman Sachs reported a jump in its fourth quarter profits on Tuesday as a surge in revenues for equity trading offset weaknesses in other areas, including merger advising revenues. The New York Investment Bank reported profits of $1.9 billion, up 58% from the year-ago period. Revenues rose 7% to $11.3 billion. Goldman Sachs revenues tied to equity trading surged 26% in the quarter, while the bank's holdings in public equities also enjoyed a hefty increase during a heady period for the U.S. stocks. Now, for a sum of $2.8 billion, oil giant Shell has agreed to sell its onshore Nigeria assets to Renaissance, a group of 4 Nigerian companies and 1 international one. In a statement released on Tuesday, Shell's London office stated that as a result of the agreement, Andy Weston, Aradol Energy, First E&P, Walter Smith, and Petrolin will now manage its onshore subsidiary. Shell, however, clarified that the federal government's permission is still a need for the deal's conclusion. Shell, which has been conducting business in Nigeria for more than 60 years, says that it will keep conducting offshore and deepwater activities in the country. Access Holdings is expanding its operations across Africa as its flagship subsidiary, Access Bank PLC, has entered into a definitive agreement with Ugandan-based Finance Trust Bank and is selling institutional shareholders for the acquisition of a majority equity stake in FTB. It was contained in a notice to the Nigerian Exchange Limited. The deal will also see Axis Bank concurrently acquiring the shares currently held by FTB's institutional shareholders who have sought to exit a strategic long-term shareholder. However, the transaction is anticipated to close in the first half of 2024 and is subject to regulatory clearances by the central banks of Uganda and Nigeria. The International Monetary Fund said it has granted Kenya a new loan of more than $941 million to help address the finances of the cash-strapped East African nation. Kenya is grappling with a host of economic challenges, including a vast debt mountain, cost of living crisis, and tumbling currency. The IMF said in a statement published on Wednesday that its executive board has approved the $941.2 million loan with an immediate disbursement of $624.5 million. Total payments under various credit facilities amount to about $2.6 billion. And that's it for the Market Roundup and top business stories this week.